Hello everybody, my name is Stan Halbesma. I used to be the owner of Harry's Foods, the fine grocery store in our community. I am now retired, so now what I do is reading, and thank you very much for inviting me to your homes to read a story for you today. The story that I have is, And We Shall Have Snow. Panda and Annie were headed for the dump. It was January, deep in the throes of a Manitoba winter. The temperature hovered around minus 35 Celsius, but the sky was an unblemished blue, the air crisp and cold, the snow sparkled, clean and white. It might be freezing outside, but there wasn't a breath of wind. They turned off the highway onto the dump road. It ran straight as an arrow all the way to the lake. 5 kilometers beyond, a smudge on the horizon, visible through the stands of trees, ashy brown and bare, casting cobalt shadows on the snow. Apart from the two of them, not a thing moved in any direction. Animals and people knew better than to venture out on a day like this unless they had to. It looked pretty outside their truck windows, but this cold could be deadly. Panda and Annie knew how to dress for the weather on days like these. They wore down-filled parkas with hoods edged with fur, scarves to wrap around their faces, and knit toques to pull down over their heads so that only their eyes were visible, leather mitts over thinner wool ones, and a felt-lined boots with thick socks inside. They wouldn't stay out for long. They wouldn't risk freezing. From a window of his shack at the entrance gate, Archie Hominski, who managed the Cullen dump, waved their big red Sierra truck through. There was no need for them to show their residence pass. They were regular visitors. Panda and Annie lived in the Interlake, named for the land between two large expanses of water, remnants of an enormous prehistoric lake that had dried to form the prairies. One lake lay on the west, and the other, just to the east, was so big that it resembled an inland sea smack dab in the middle of Canada. Their house, the one they had built several years before, was out in the country, near Cullen Village, which lay on the shore of that big frozen lake. There was no garbage pickup service out where they lived, so once every couple of weeks, Panda and Annie would load plastic bags containing all of their household waste into the back of the truck and do a dump run. Cullen Village prided itself on being environmentally conscious and was rightly proud of its landfill, which was situated about 4 kilometers outside of town. Archie kept the place well organized and recycling was encouraged. There was no sewer system in the village. Waste fluids had to be picked up from holding tanks and carted in honey trucks to the sewage lagoon beside the dump, even in the depths of winter. It was far enough away from the residents not to be reminded of their existence whenever the wind blew in their direction, but near enough to allow residents like Panda and Annie to have convenient access. Now, Panda drove the truck slowly along the snow-packed track that served as a road, past piles of concrete rubble, broken toilets and sinks, and heaps of discarded metal waiting to be picked up for scrap. She watched out for the debris on the road. It was easy to pick up a nail or a shard of metal, and a flat tire when it was this cold was no fun. Trees clumped along the perimeter of the site were festooned with white plastic grocery bags that had snagged on branches on windier days. They passed a turnoff that led to the area where grass trimmings and leaves were deposited in the summertime to decompose into compost. But no one was there in the winter. That road was buried in undisturbed snow. Beside it was a gray shed with an adjoining cage where hazardous waste was left for disposal. They usually liked to stop at the lumber section. Old discarded furniture often showed up, even in the wintertime. Panda had an eye for antiques and liked to restore old wood. She would search for a well-made chair, a dresser, a table made of solid wood, half buried in the snow. She took such items home, sanded them down, polished them, and gave them a fresh coat of paint, then sold them online. Winter was a good time to hunker down and get the work done. On this day, however, she headed straight up the hill. Panda had previously lived in the city. Winnipeg, Manitoba's capital city, lay an hour's drive to the south. Panda had been surprised to discover what over the hill really meant as they drove up. A sloping incline, a solid hill of dirt and garbage to the top, where you parked and chucked your bags over a cliff-like edge, literally over the hill. Ha! Imagine that, said Panda. Never occurred to me. The Cullen Village dumped garbage trucks, there were 2 of them, headed dutifully every Monday morning to retrieve the village's garbage from curbsides and driveways. They brought it to the dump and piled all the trash they had collected along the top of the hill, where it remained until Archie got into his big yellow bobcat and used the front end to shove the whole load over the edge. He then trundled the machine down the ramp at the side of the hill to the bottom, where he pushed and compressed the garbage into the side of the mound. So the hill grew, even in wintertime. It was 15 feet high, the only incline as far as the eye could see. By Monday's end, the heap of rubbish was usually gone. But this was Tuesday, and this week, all of it remained. Full plastic bags interspersed with boxes, bags, and smaller white grocery bags that were stuffed to capacity lay piled along the edge of the hill. Some bags had burst open. There were broken toys, sheets of cardboard, empty bottles, pots, crockery, books, and pieces of torn fabric scattered amongst them. Seagulls swooped overhead, scavenging for anything edible. They were eerily quiet, silenced by the cold. Another truck and car were parked at the top of the hill. "Wow, look who's here," said Panda. Backing her own truck up alongside the others, she understood dump protocol. "Hi there, Angus. Hi, Jack," she called, hauling her large bulk out of the cab. Annie clambered out on the passenger side. She barely reached Panda's shoulders. Their breath turned into ice crystals as they spoke. "Whew, cold day, eh?" "How come the Cullen garbage is still there?" asked Annie. "Archie's bobcat broke. We've been trying to help him fix it, but it needs a part from Winnipeg." Angus Smith lived in an old farmhouse at the south end of Cullen Village. He had a large workshop, well equipped with table saws, sanders, an extractor fan, and a work table. Angus played host to men's groups that gathered there each week to build and fix things and yap. Currently, they were collecting aluminum that they could smelt down and mold into other things. Angus had an inventive mind and had built a small foundry. He also had a fascination with fire. "That's what comes of living in this darn freezer," said Panda, who often said she wanted to move to British Columbia, to the mild climate of the West Coast. Annie loved the intense stillness of a winter cold. She had no wish to live anywhere else, and so far her will prevailed. "Ha," said Angus. "See what I found already?" He waved a pair of old brass candlesticks. "Look at how old they are. These will clean up real nice." Excitedly, a bundled up person came around the corner of the truck. Jack Sawaski was one of Angus's best cronies. He had hauled a box of old magazines away from the edge of the hill. "Do you want to have a look at these, Panda?" He knew from experience that Panda liked to scan the illustrations to find ideas on how she could update old furniture. "Sure, I'll have a look." She squatted down beside him. "Is Archie going to be able to move all this stuff today?" She watched Annie walking along the edge of the hill, surveying the assorted rubbish. "He's gone to get his old tractor." At the entrance to the dump was a sign that said, "No scavenging." Archie knew what they were up to, but he turned a blind eye. He collected items himself, ones with resale value. Bikes in decent shape, radios that worked. He got first pick as a perk of the job. He passed them on to his niece, who held garage sales in the summer on the other side of the lake. The pieces he found were stored in a shed. He also stashed logs, enough to feed the wood stove that kept his shack warm and snug on days like this. Angus and Jack were among the handful of men who were sometimes invited to join him on a quiet afternoon for a game of cards. Archie liked company and he liked to talk. You can tell a lot about folks from what they throw away, he said. Annie and Panda had never been invited into the all-male world of a dump shack, but their presence on the hill itself was tolerated, and guys like Angus often passed on an interesting bit of news as they clambered over the plastic bags that littered the area. In a place as isolated as this, in the wintertime, it helped to know what was going on. The roar of an engine shattered the quiet. Archie drove a red tractor up the hill and used its front-end loader to start sending bags crashing over the edge. Panda watched him drive to and fro, and then she walked further along the hill. A box of old china caught her eye. She picked up a pink flowered cup and shook her head. People used to treasure that stuff. Now it was thrown away, useless and unwanted. Last summer she had seen a piano in the lumber area, lying on its back, broken, its keys gaping silently up to the sky. She went to the back of the Sierra, opened up the back gate, and hauled out 3 full bags of garbage and a box of rubbish. She tossed them over the hill herself. It didn't take Archie long to shovel all the trash over the top. He was just doing a rough job, working fast, just pushing most of the bags over. Annie watched as each load crashed over the edge. Usually he cleared everything, including stray bottles and cans. Archie took pride in doing a good job, leaving the top of that hill clean and flat. That would obviously have to wait until his big loader was fixed. Today, he was only doing what needed to be done. It wasn't long until he swung over to the ramp and was chugging down to the bottom of the hill, his machine belching exhaust fog behind him. Annie was glad to see him, his noise and his fumes gone. She walked back to where Panda was loading the magazines into the back of the truck. "Are you taking those home?" Angus and Jack looked like they had finished for the day too. They were walking towards their vehicle. Archie's voice, coming from the foot of the hill, stopped him. "Oh geez," they heard him yell. "Hey guys!" Angus, Jack, Panda, and Annie went to the edge of the hill and looked over. "What's up, Archie?" Angus shouted down. Archie had stopped the tractor and was clambering out. There's something here!" Archie was approaching a heap of black garbage bags at the foot of the vertical fall, 10 feet or so below. "This is bad, real bad." Angus and Jack skidded down the slippery slope on foot towards Archie, who was staring at the plastic bags. Panda and Annie followed. They could see one bag had ruptured on impact. As they drew closer, they could see the cause of Archie's alarm. A bag lay against a pile of metal cans partially covered with snow. Protruding from it was a naked human foot. The pink flesh was glossy and cold, like plastic, startling against the white snow and the black, shiny plastic bag. Clumps of black and white newsprint bulged around it. The toenails were painted turquoise. Angus reached over into the tractor and turned off the engine. There was a moment of stunned silence. And then Panda pulled off her leather mitts and reached into her pocket for her cell phone. "I'm calling 911, she said. Annie stood shock still, watching. "I wonder where the rest of her is," said Angus, looking closer. He started poking around among the other bags. "You shouldn't be doing that, Angus," Panda said. And then somebody answered her call. "We need the police," they heard her say. "What else is in here?" Angus said, still rooting amongst the bags. Archie joined him. Jack looked on, helpless. Annie still first surveyed the scene, grimmed face. Panda was on the phone, giving directions. "I got something," cried Angus, throwing down his mitts and seizing another bag. "You need to leave that alone." Panda put her phone back in her pocket. "The police are on their way." It was too late. They all watched as Angus ripped the bag open. He held it up by the bottom corners, and what rolled out was a head, severed at the neck. The hair was blonde, almost white. The eyes stared, blue and vacant. The mouth gasped in a silent scream. They could see teeth, a protruding tongue. Annie's voice cut through the cold. "That," she said, "is Stella Magnuson." Thank you for listening to my story. There's obviously a part 2 to this and a continuing story. I hope I have a chance to read you the next part. Thank you.